to another edition of the Business Plain and Simple podcast presented by the ReGroup Advisors. I'm your host, Tiffany Stone, and it's our goal with this and all of our podcasts to guide prospective and current business owners on their journey to prosperity. We'll show you what to do and what not to do in this ever-changing environment. I'm thrilled to be joined today by three wonderful gentlemen, Jim, Mike, and Ryan of ReGroup Advisors. Welcome, gentlemen. It is so good to have all three of you here today. Pretty excited about this, and I know we've got a lot to cover, especially going into 2023. So let's start off with you, Mike. What have you seen business focus for this year of the last quarter, and what are the concerns going into Q1 for next year based on your national peer group sessions?
We're really still seeing a lot of focus on employment, attracting talent, and really trying to retain their talent. And it's interesting, people have missed out that with this hybrid workforce, you're actually not just recruiting locally, you're recruiting on a national basis, because somebody that can work from home can work for a company in California just as easy as they can work in Florida or Ohio. And so it's really upset the apple cart a little bit and caused organizations to really refine their processes, et cetera. And we're seeing a lot of acquisition. We're seeing a lot of startup. People had some time over the last couple of years to, take a hobby and move it a little forward, and now starting to look at growing. We're seeing a lot of the larger companies acquire smaller ones, so a lot of exit stuff going on at the same time. So a lot of movement, a lot of activity, exciting time, but some challenges along the way as far as labor and a little bit on the access to capital. Traditional banks have tightened back up a little bit, but overall that's really kind of main points.
I think mine's a little bit different. Is one of the themes that I've been seeing we have these peer groups and they're nationwide. And one of the themes that we seem to be seeing on a regular basis is this whole remote workforce, especially as we're exiting the fourth quarter and going into the new year of what we're seeing with that. And I'm telling you, I guess it's not just the peer groups that you also hear it when we're having just general meetings with clients. Heck, I heard it over Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know if you guys did. It's the whole thing about that the pros and cons of that. And trust me, you hear, well, everybody's opinion is the right one. Just ask them and they'll tell you. Because it goes into those sort of discussions of how do we do this? If we've done it this way for the past 2 years and it seems to work, why am I going to go drive 2 hours a day in a car and go to an office? And it's kind of the techniques that people are sharing within these peer groups of how they've been able to do this. And like I said, it's if you will, the pros and cons of hearing those types of how we go about and doing it. The water cooler conversations that you have in the office, does that beat of hitting the clicking on the button and doing a video call with somebody? You hear all sorts of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially you're talking to three guys in the Metro Detroit area of how that's going to move forward as we enter the year, and who's going to really be blazing the trails of the way to do this.
Tiffany, I think the key buzzword that I use with my clients every single day going into 2023 is authenticity from a marketing standpoint, because people like to be talked with instead of be talked to, right? So they love to hear the inside look of what a business is like. They like to hear the business owner's story and those sorts of things. These iPhones, Google, YouTube, social media, I like to always say, none of that stuff's a fad. That stuff is here to stay and it's getting stronger. That's where your consumers are. Get into that space. And I think a lot of business owners are maybe nervous about just creating simple videos and putting them out there, but everything that you need is right at your fingertips to give people the information that they're looking for. Hey, with inflation where it's at right now and groceries and everything costing more, that extra dollar that people have is less and less and less. You're competing with that more and more and more. So get yourself out there, be authentic, be different than everybody else. That's what's really going to help you connect with people. And I look at it, hey, this is as exciting of a time as we've ever had with marketing. You can get creative and do everything right from your office. So authenticity is the key going forward, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
And piggybacking on what Ryan said, one of the interesting things is the opportunities now for people to actually diversify their portfolio. So you're seeing automotive manufacturers move into different manufacturing concepts, even moving into healthcare device manufacturing. And it's stressing the processes because it is a whole different business. And so attracting people to come work there, getting the messaging even internally to your staff and explaining what you're trying to do is a lot more challenging now. People aren't coming into a conference room and having a session. We've built out a number of different internal training programs, and we did one a couple of weeks ago for a nonprofit organization. It was the first time that they were all in a room for a training session in a couple of years, and that just goes to show you the evolution of it. And there's still things that you need people in the same room to do, which is kind of fun. And on the merger side, the cultures, that's the number one thing we have to look at when somebody's talking about a merger. We're evaluating the culture and do they fit.
No, and just listening to you three, you're absolutely correct. And listening to what Jim said about water cooler talk, and then Ryan talking about marketing, and as somebody who's kind of on that cusp, I'm going to age myself a little here, but I graduated without social media. So, I didn't have all of those different things, and I'm on that cusp. I'm that person who uses social media as a marketing tool, uses it to find out kind of what's out there, but also I'm on the other side, the not necessarily older generation, but it's like, hey, if it's not broke, why do we need to fix it? But now I also know that we need to kind of move forward and go with that. Going off of that though, Ryan, because you had talked about marketing, really, where do you see Q1, Q2 for 2023 really going with marketing and kind of pushing it out there? Because you guys are absolutely correct. The water cooler talk, the conference rooms, the big peer-to-peer conversations that we used to have in person don't necessarily happen anymore. And yes, a lot of stuff happens via Zoom or via any other, video chat, but it's not like being in a room where you can hash out ideas, write some things down, and not be distracted with what's kind of going on over here behind you. So where do you kind of see Q1, Q2 for marketing going?
Well, I hear every day people worried about inflation. Oh, I'm going to cut back on my ad budget. I'm going to do less. And you don't have to necessarily spend as much money as you did last year, but you can do more just with these basic things. Like I said, recording video. Every business should have a podcast. Let's just start with that basic premise. And I think a lot of businesses are intimidated by it. They think, how in the world am I going to have time to do this? I don't know how to do it. Well, people like myself can help you with that, or you can do it yourself and I can show you how to do it. It's a very simple thing. And think about like TikTok and YouTube and these people that have gone crazy with all these viral videos. It's just them showing themselves doing everyday stuff. And people just fall in love with that. So as a business owner, show yourself just doing everyday stuff. Show yourself being a real person. And that is something that will really help people connect to you. So I see more and more of just showing, like I said, the inside look of what your business is like. That's how you get people to trust you. That's how you get those extra little bit of dollars that are still there in their budget for that extra.
No,
go ahead, Tiff.
No, I was going to say, you're right, because everybody talks about this iceberg and we only see the tip of the iceberg. Now you guys are going to show them a little bit beyond the tip of the iceberg, really kind of like what's happening down there to showcase. And I think, Ryan, you're absolutely correct. Be yourself, show everyday people that you are an everyday person, just with a really cool business idea, a really cool product out there.
And one of the things that gets overlooked is the intra communication plan as well. So the same techniques you're using to talk to your clients about are the same ones that you can use to talk to your employees. And once again, this is becoming more and more important as we're starting to see, companies come together. And in the last, probably year, we've seen a lot of organizations reach out to their competitors as a solution and say, how do we work together? And instead of both of us trying to get the 40 employees, let's combine our workforces and leverage our talent to deliver, services. And there's some complexity to that. I mean, we've done probably a dozen different models to adapt for different needs. But the one number thing that causes that to fall apart is culture and communication. Those two things are almost linked together, and that's why we say if you separate them and you're not actively communicating, your culture goes away, and then ultimately it just fails, and we see that happening a lot more now.
See, I'm having flashbacks now. It's like it almost seems like it's our Tuesday team meeting call that you're having here, Mike. Is that this is the kind of things that we're talking about as a group. But I can also tell you that we're also talking it over lunch, with potential clients, with peers, with just anybody, to be able to have these types of conversations. So we do cover that a lot.
Well, and going off of that, Jim and Mike, please, interject on this as well. You guys are starting to see a lot of startups and people planning to start businesses. But on the flip side, you're also seeing people exiting those businesses. And like you had mentioned, Mike, combining together with somebody who's starting a new business. So, Jim, Mike, kind of what are your guys' thoughts on that for 2020?
Go more to the startup side, because that's a lot what we're doing right now with local municipalities. And we're going in and we're hearing the pitch, if you will, from these organizations or these individuals who want to be able to go and do these types of startups. And I think probably like in third, fourth quarter, we must have heard about a dozen of these types of presentations. And, you see every bit of the spectrum on this thing. You see something that we just look at each other at the end of the meeting and go, well, that's going to work. Mm-hmm. And then there's other times when you just have to find the way to give that message of you need to make some modifications to be able to make this thing go forward. And those are disappointing conversations that we have with those individuals, but it kind of becomes that necessity of being able to do that. I don't know, what have you guys seen in those types of sessions when we're going through and we're listening to these presentations?
Yeah, I mean, we have 14 active business launches right now that we're working on. So, and those are all either pure startup from a whiteboard. Probably about 5 of those are pure startup. The other 9 are actually businesses that have been around for a while that are now bifurcating or splitting their business into a couple of different directions, really to take advantage of some opportunities and leveraging what they're doing. On the exit side, Tiffany, it's interesting. We've been doing this for 22 years, and most of us have been in kind of the private equity realm 35 years plus. So talk about dating yourselves, right? The gray hair around this table is a little different. But one of the things that we're seeing is with the aging ownership, they're tired. Running a business through a pandemic was not fun. It was very difficult, very stressful on owners, trying to cover payroll, trying to get governance. They still haven't even issued the employee retention credit refunds to businesses. It's almost 2 years since they fronted the money to sit down and actually handle keeping people employed. So those stressors now have caused, owners to say, geez, I don't know if I got the energy to keep going at this age. And then more importantly, their succession plans are all blown out of the water because the kids just watch mom and dad run a business for the last several, years, and went, why do I want to step into that? And so there's no handoffs. So that's causing an exit, and it's causing a lot of merger and a lot of acquisition discussions going on. And what we found, and we always say this, if you didn't start at the end when you started your business, it's very difficult now to land that plane. And so we're getting involved in a lot of, we have 6 active exit strategies going on right now. All of them never planned on exiting. These are all brand new in the last year saying time to exit.
But think about that, Mike, is those half a dozen exits that are going through is everything that you've said is what I'll see sitting around the table is the emotion part of that thing. Is it is so darn hard to let go. And especially when he was talking about, well, the kids don't want to do it, the family doesn't want to do it. How do you go back and do this? They know it's right, but then it's going to be, how do I let go?
No, you're right. And there's a lot of challenges. And Ryan, how can ReGroup help with these challenges going into 2023 that we discussed? Because, between you 3 gentlemen, that's a plethora of knowledge right there to be able to help any brand new business owners.
Well, I'm going to go back to that video well again. I keep kind of banging that drum, but and I want to go back a little bit too when they're talking about the startup businesses, and we've seen some great successes there, and then some people that weren't quite ready to launch. And what I would stress to them is, hey, don't give up. Get your story out there. Document your story. Document your passion behind why you think this can be an impactful and successful business. Get it out there. You never know who might see it. You know, you might see an investor that comes across it, or just somebody that can help further you along your journey. So, you know, don't give up on that end of it, and document everything with video. Get it out there. Put the hashtags on there. You know, make it searchable. And I've seen amazing things happen. We don't have time to talk about all the stories, but I've seen amazing things happen by just getting something out there on the internet.
That's awesome. All right, gentlemen, between the three of you, is there anything that you want all of our viewers, listeners to know about ReGroup Advisors and what you guys can do to help businesses, especially alleviate some of the stressors? You know, I am a small business owner in my own regard. For myself, I don't really necessarily have anybody to work for me. You know, I'm not that big, but if I needed some help or wanted to keep going, you know, from the whiteboard to an actual business plan to putting it out there, what could I do, or what could you guys help assist me with?
You know, I think, Tiffany, and it's interesting you mentioned kind of that, the business size. So anybody from a whiteboard, or our largest client's a $500 million a year organization. And we also do a lot of nonprofits. So it's not really business size. It's really, if you're an owner or you are running an organization and you're looking to have some fresh ideas, or you're looking for some assistance from the cumulative knowledge that we've had playing in this, you know, merger acquisition, startup phase for all those years, call us. It doesn't hurt to have a conversation. I mean, our peer groups are a great way to talk to people across the country and learn their ideas as well. So we have a number of different ways to educate. And I think we're at the point in our careers where we've done a lot, we've owned a lot of businesses and got in and out, that now it's time for us to give back. With that said, we also like to get paid. So, you know, we're not going to do, you know, free services for all of you out there, but we will, you know, conversations and having those discussions to help get people situated and protect their retirement, or be able to sit there and move forward is a number one.
Tiffany, Mike does a great job of almost doing the commercial for our 2-minute podcast. And here's a bunch of guys that are just having a good time, and we're telling stories, but there's always kind of that lesson learned at the end. And that's what I would always encourage folks is, you know, spend that couple minutes on that Tuesday when that thing drops on the various social media platforms. And it's just guys telling hopefully humorous stories. But also, like I said before, there's a little bit of a lesson learned at the end of it to be able to share the type of information that we're trying to share in the instances like this longer version today.
That's awesome. Ryan, any last words from you?
Video.
You can tell he dragged us in front of the camera too. So, you know.
No, I mean, Ryan's right. You know, you do have to get yourself out there. You have to present yourself. And at the end of the day, I think so many people are so worried about being themselves because, you know, social media is so instant. So if you want to see something negative about yourself or read or hear or whatever, you know, I've even done that before. And it's just like, man, it's just after a while, you kind of get down on yourself. But you also have to remember, a lot of the people who are making those comments about you or saying those things aren't doing what you are doing, and they're even afraid to do it. And I think that's the biggest lesson, besides video, of course. But you just learn that everybody is afraid to do the things that you are actually doing. So, you know what? Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today. You know, it's really cool to be able to chat, especially with somebody who has some great knowledge in what you guys do. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that all of this great information is going to be so beneficial for so many people, even myself out there. Like I say all the time to Mike, it's so cool to talk to all of these great people in business, because not only do I get to interview them, but I'm learning at the same time. So I think it's wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me and providing some great information, gentlemen. That's going to be it for another edition of the Business Plain and Simple podcast presented by the ReGroup Advisors. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure you guys follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss future episodes. And if you guys want, you can be notified as soon as they are released. And if you want to catch up on past episodes, you can see those in the podcast feed as well. And if you guys are interested in business advice from these three fine gentlemen right here and getting some of their services offered by the ReGroup Advisors, you guys can contact them at 888-248-7077. Gentlemen, thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.